Welcome to our respected speaker today, Mr. Sunil Bhide. We are very much glad to have you and welcome all the participants who have joined us today on the behalf of Stroke Support Alliance. So today I'll be just giving a first brief about Mr. Sunil Bhide. He is a brain stroke survivor and he suffered a stroke at the age of 47 in 2017 with an extremely rare and catastrophic hemorrhagic stroke in his cerebellum. He underwent two brain surgeries and spent a month in a medically induced coma and rehabbing ever since. Not just his life changing, debilitating illness, later on, he had to quit working. He is extremely grateful and thankful to the universe that he survived, and he promises the universe that he's going to make the most of the fact that he is alive. He is an non-unique journey of his life, a journey complete with excellent highs and heart-wrenching loss. He is a true fighter and has written an extremely inspirational book titled named as One Fine Day, a unique story of resilience and hope in facing a new normal. His mission, starting with his book, is to help and guide people worldwide on how one can prepare for and embrace their new normal, whatever it is for them, with positivity, grace, and gratitude. So I'm very much thankful, sir, that you joined us today, and I would like to hand over to Mr. Samir Bhide so that he can start with his journey of his stroke journey. And if any questions from our participants, they can just drop down in the chat section. Mr. Samir Bhide will be most happy to answer all your queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamanna, for the warm welcome. And as I said before, I'm really looking forward to this session. And thanks everybody for joining. And Tamanna, if I may, before I get started on talking about my journey, if I can just give my brief background, so that way, people will know who I am and have some context to the discussion. And some of it you have already mentioned, which is great. But if I may.
Yes.
All right. So, I am from India, obviously. I was born in Pune, but I grew up in Mumbai. So consider me as a Mumbai boy. Pune, I was there only, I was born there, and within 6 months, we moved to Mumbai. So all my schooling, my college, everything happened in Mumbai. I had a very good childhood. I obviously had schooling and college, but I also played competitive badminton and cricket, and went on to represent Maharashtra for the nationals in badminton. Then I completed my BCom in Mumbai. And then 31 years ago, I moved to the US as an international student to do another bachelor's year and an MBA. And then I found employment after my MBA here in consulting and technology. And I worked for many global companies. Then I got my green card, and then I eventually became a citizen. And then I lived in Cleveland and Boston in the US till 2002. And then since 2002, I'm based in Washington, DC, in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, DC. So just going back to the background, right? I was living the American dream till January of 2017. I had a good job. I had a nice house. I had a sports car. I had a loving family. I had all the comforts of life and was quite well settled. And then one fine day, and I'll tell you what that means in a second, but on that one fine day in January of 2017, my life changed forever. I suffered a massive and extremely rare stroke, which was a genetic form of stroke, and I'll cover that as well, which led to a brain hemorrhage. So not only I had a stroke, it was a massive brain hemorrhage in my cerebellum. I was quite young, as Tamanna mentioned. I was 47 with a young family. And then I had 2 brain surgeries of 3 hours each. Then I spent about 30 days in a medically induced coma. And then I was moved to a rehab hospital, and I have been rehabbing ever since. So it's almost 4.5 years now. So initially after my stroke, right, I was completely bedridden. I was, before my stroke, I was going at 100 kilometers an hour. And then after my stroke, I basically came to a screeching halt. I was barely doing maybe 5-10 kilometers an hour. I was completely bedridden initially. Then I slowly graduated to a wheelchair, and then to a walker, and now I use a cane. And that's part of my new normal. I still have issues with balance and dizziness and headaches, but I thank God that I'm at least breathing. I'm alive. So when this tragedy struck me, and I survived this very rare stroke, you know, uh, uh, I knew that that my time had not come to leave this beautiful planet of ours, and I felt extremely grateful and thankful that I had survived, and I wanted to give back to society in some way or form, right? Which is to help others going through any adversity or any other life changes. And because I had done a lot of treatments, therapies in Eastern and Western medicine, physical therapy, holistic treatments, and a lot of psychological thinking and stuff like that. I had a lot of experiences doing these things, which helped me over the years. So I wanted to share that with others. All the stories I had, the experiences I had, the lessons learned from my journey. So I decided to write my book, as Tamanna mentioned, One Fine Day, which I launched in December of 2020. So you may be wondering, right, that how I was supposed to write, right? Because my health condition doesn't allow me to type with both hands. I can only type with my right hand because my left side is still weak from the stroke, and I cannot focus on the computers 10 minutes or 15 minutes at a stretch reading anything. So that was a stretch for me. So how was I supposed to type, right? But my calling, right? I say the calling which is to help others, was very strong, and I found a way to do it. So what I did is, I hired a ghostwriter here in the US, and the ghostwriter helped me write the book. So the way the process worked was that, I would type up notes from my experiences. I'll share it with the ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter will do an initial draft. Then I'll add, delete to it, and I'll send it back to the ghostwriter. And then the ghostwriter will fine tune it further and then send it back to me, and I'll fine tune it further and add, delete to the chapter and send it back. So we went back and forth like this for about a year, and we wrote 11 chapters like that in a year. So the process I started, formulating the idea of writing this book in January of 2019, but I actually started writing with the ghostwriter in August of 2019, and finished writing roughly around August or September of 2020. And we wrote 11 chapters. So somehow I managed to do that, which I personally was very happy, because it was impossible for me to write on my own. And what it did to me is that I didn't have to spend a lot of time on the computer. So what is One Fine Day, right? So why did I title it One Fine Day? Because in English language, what is one fine day, right? The basic meaning of one fine day is sudden, unknown or unspecified time or a day. That's kind of the definition of one fine day. So in my case, right, everything was going fine till that one fine day in January when life changed forever. So what one fine day means is that life can and will change for good or for bad, anytime, anywhere, and for anyone. So it's not just bad life changes, like medical illness or divorce or whatever. It's also good life changes, like getting married or having a child or retirement or whatever, right? And so no matter what these changes are, right, whether good or bad, these changes, alter our trajectory, and it certainly did, mine did, and it results in a new normal, and which requires successful adaptation, no matter what these changes are. So I wrote the book with that mindset that whether life changes are good or bad, it results in a new normal, and you have to adapt to this new normal and face it, right? So it's my story of how I have slowly tried to embrace my new normal with positivity, grace, and gratitude, which I have tried to do over the last 4 years. And according to me, that was the only choice I had, right? I mean, I had a choice to make, that either I was sad and depressed with my situation, or find different ways to move forward. So I decided to do the latter. And I said, I need to do something with my life. Yes, this has happened and so on and so forth. But I need to, I need to do something, and I need to help others. And that was my calling. So the book is written, I wrote the book. I wanted to make sure the book is not a sob story, right? It's not about, oh, why this happened to me, and I'm not crying, and of course I'm mentioning, about my illness and what happened. But more importantly, what are some of the things I did, physical things, emotional things, to face my adversity. And I think it's an inspirational book, which will guide people, no matter what they are facing. And it doesn't have to be big or small, adversity, or it could be good or bad. But I think it will give some inspiration on what are some of the things one can try to address the situation. So for me, and I'll talk about that later. Acceptance of what happened to me was a very, very tough thing. And I think many of you in this group may be stroke survivors or caregivers. And that's a challenge everybody faces, is acceptance. So it took me some time, and I'll cover that. But it starts with acceptance of your situation, no matter what it is. And the choices in front of me were that, that I need to do something in my life, and I cannot be sad or depressed. And self-pity and complaining were not options for me. So the point in the book is that at some point in time, for each one of us, we will have a new normal, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be small. It doesn't have to be personal. It doesn't have to be professional. It could be anything. And whatever it is, each one of us will face a new normal, and we must face it with grace and gratitude and positivity. And that was my lesson learned. And initially, it was very tough to accept things and try to be positive and try to be grateful and stuff like that. But I've slowly learned over the time, and that's very natural for a lot of people. So now, so when I was writing this book, right, in 2019, now I was writing about the life changes which I mentioned before, but never in a million years, right? I thought that this pandemic will create such a dramatic new normal for all of us, right, globally. And the way I look at it is that the entire world had its one fine day and is now facing this new normal. So I think my messages in the book, are much more relevant now. And again, I had no idea before, right, what it takes to heal your mind, body, and spirit. And I've done these several things over the last 4.5 years. And I've tried to share that with my readers in the book. And that's what I plan to do going forward, beyond the book, when I have other sessions and stuff, presentations and stuff like that. So that was the primary reason, right, for writing the book, sharing my experiences. But I also wanted to thank these several people, a very diverse community of friends, caregivers, colleagues here in the US, and also back in India, who helped me with to come back from the brink. So that was the other reason I wrote the book, is to thank them. And again, and I made a point in the book that, I didn't want to scare anybody in the book. I just want to raise the awareness. One of the reasons this group exists is to raise awareness about stroke, but I'm raising awareness that, you have to prepare better for whatever you're facing. And I certainly I was not prepared. And it's not, and again, it's not a prescriptive book, right? It's not like, okay, these are the top 10 things to do. No, it's not like that. I'm just sharing my experiences, and which helped me, and hopefully that will help others. So I'm just relating my experience. So enough of the book, so just to wrap up, the bottom line message from the book is that we are all one fine day away from a new normal, and accepting life changes no matter what, and embracing the new normal with grace and gratitude is the best choice. It's not the only choice, it's the best choice. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell, Tamanna.
Thank you so much, sir, for your journey. I would like to know about some of the few questions when you actually had a stroke. So, did you actually first feel like that you were having some symptoms of stroke, or you would hit it as a like stroke, or what did you do actually when you had a stroke?
Right, right. So before the stroke, there were absolutely no symptoms, and again, I did not know this till I gained consciousness, and I asked my neurosurgeon, how the heck does this happen? So I learned from him that there are two types of strokes. First is for most people, or many types, many high percentage of strokes. It's because of lifestyle, smoking, drinking, alcohol, and lack of exercise and stuff like that. And there are some strokes which are genetic. You are born with some abnormality, and that will lead to a stroke. And I was in that group, and it's a smaller percentage of strokes, which is that you're born with this abnormality, and at some point you will have a stroke. So I was born with this, so I didn't know that till after I gained consciousness. But the day of my stroke, till that point there were no symptoms. In fact, I had done a complete physical 15 days ago, and there were no problems then. But the day of the stroke, I mean, again, with these types of stroke, unfortunately, only when the stroke has started, you realize that you are having a stroke. There's no symptoms before. So the day of the stroke, initially my left sinus started to hurt right below my left eye. It started to really hurt a lot. It started throbbing. So that was the first indicator. And, so I decided, okay, something is wrong. I didn't know what was going on. And then I started to become dizzy, which I couldn't sit up straight on my bed. So I decided to lie down, and like as I say in my book, like an Indian, like a true Indian or a true man, I said, okay, I'm just going to take some aspirin or something and sleep it off. So that was my mentality, because again, I was not, thinking anything dramatic is happening. And then I started to sweat. And that time I realized that something was wrong. And that's when my ex-wife and I called the paramedics here, that something is wrong, and they came within 10-15 minutes. And they took me to the ambulance downstairs, and I passed out. And I was completely in a coma for 30 days. I don't recollect a lot, just a few things, but I passed out. So apparently they took me to the hospital, ER, and they over there, they found out in the MRI that I had burst a vessel in my cerebellum. And then within an hour or two, I was on the operating table, and I went through two major surgeries, 3 hours each. So there was no symptoms, Tamanna, before. It only started when I started to that morning. The first symptom was a pressure of my sinus.
Okay, sir. So that means, like you already said, that you were not experiencing any kind of symptoms before you had a stroke. It was just due to the abnormalities that actually some of them are unaware about, that might cause a stroke.
Right.
So, just one thing actually, that many of the stroke survivors struggle on their recovery part. They feel like, if once I got a stroke, I cannot be standing, or I cannot work as I used to do earlier. So that adds to on and frustration in their daily lives. So how you cope up through your recovery, and also how you keep up that motivation into your mind and your heart, that yes, I'll be fine one day, and I'll be normal as I was earlier. So, what message you would like to give to our survivors?
Sure, absolutely. And and I'll be very honest with you, that was the hard part, right? For the first 6 months or so after my stroke, it was extremely hard for me to accept what was going on, right? That the thoughts of why me hounded me. Why me? Why my family is suffering? Why am I going through this? They hounded me for the 6 months, and And after 6 months, I said, okay, I need to do something about these thoughts, right? Because they were really, I was physically, I was doing a lot of therapy sessions, and I was gaining some strength. My vision was improving, although my dizziness was the same. But, I was improving on some other fronts. But my mind was completely out of control because it was very hard for me to accept things. So after 6 months or so, roughly, I started practicing, and I got exposed to yoga and meditation, and I also started talking to a clinical psychologist. So these three things helped me calm down. Again, and slowly over time, help me accept the situation. So again, I want to stress with this community, and I've stressed in the book, is that this acceptance takes time. It's not like one day you suddenly say, okay, now I accept things, and there's no button like that. It takes time, and you have to keep working towards it. And so I'm keeping it very realistic. It takes time. For some people it's 6 months, some people it's 2 years, some people it's 5 years. But no matter what, right, what you do in terms of acceptance, there always will be days when you feel, "Ki bhai, what the hell happened, right? Why me?" That happens. But in my case, for example, this why me was happening I would say roughly every hour for the first 6 months after the stroke. Is, why me? These thoughts were constantly coming to me. And now, because I've been doing a lot of these things, I'm not saying I'm completely free of it. These thoughts do come once in a while. Again, the frequency has gone down dramatically from what it was 6 months ago. So, but these thoughts do come one in mind. I don't think one can ever accept everything 100%. So the only message I have is that be patient, and that's what was difficult for 6 months for me. And then try to do things which, again, keep a positive mindset that things will get better. And you have to reinvent and reimagining what your life, right, and which I've tried to do. I was a total corporate guy before my stroke. I worked nonstop for 24 years. And then I had never, ever imagined that I would be writing a book. That thought never came to my mind till I decided to do this in August 2019, because again, as I said, my calling was to help others. So again, you have to reinvent, reimagine, and do everything in your power, right? Of course, you will be facing with a lot of difficulties, but do everything in your power to rectify the situation, or try to move forward. And it takes time, though, absolutely.
Definitely, sir. Acceptance takes time. That's very true. And so I would like to know that what basically the most urgent needs that you would like to convey to our stroke patients that is important during the treatment and after the treatment, because you can actually relate it to very seriously, because many of the stroke survivors actually they don't know that what are the urgent needs that it's very important after the treatment also, and pre-treatment.
Sure. So there are some lessons learned, and in my book, I call it summarisms. And these are basically lessons learned. So after each chapter, I have those summarisms, and I'm going to share some of them with you guys. So they are not specific to any stroke or anything in specific. These are general lessons learned for anybody going through any medical crisis or any life changes. So first and foremost, everybody here, whether you're a caregiver or a stroke survivor, everybody has to remember that don't be tempted to compare your recovery or your loved one's recovery with that of others. And keep in mind that every situation, every adversity is different. And learn to, again, going back to acceptance, learn to accept that you will heal at your own pace, and that is perfectly okay. A lot of people will come to you. They'll tell you their examples or their scenarios of how they heard this person recover in 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever, and they all mean well. But each one of us, each one of your loved ones who are going through a stroke or whatever, will take, will heal at their own pace, and which is perfectly okay. And that is something I have learned in my journey, to accept that. And again, as I've said before, the acceptance, you have no choice but to play the hand you are dealt. So initially I was like, again, right, why am I, why is this hand playing cards? Why is this hand like this? I don't have, I can't do the rummy or whatever. But you have to learn that it's not the, you have to learn to play the hand you are dealt, not what you think you deserve, or what you want. And again, so there's a saying in the English language: when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. And that is so true for each one of us to remember that no matter what, big or small adversaries you're facing, you have to make something out of it. And the other thing which I highly, I learned over a period of time, that you cannot play the victim beyond a certain time. It's perfectly okay to pity yourself initially, but that has to stop very quickly, so that you can accept your new reality and eventually your new normal. So it's part of that acceptance process, that you should not play the victim card. And then the other thing which I would like to share is, you have to take ownership of your decisions. As I said before, there are many ideas and suggestions from various people who mean well. But at the end of the day, you have to evaluate each one of those things and decide for yourself what route you want to pursue. And as a part of my journey, I also learned that there is no magic pill or a potion, whether in Eastern medicine or Western medicine, which offers a total cure, right? So physical rehab, mental rehab, and grit is the only way to move forward. There's no magic pill.
That's very
And
true.
and a couple of other things, Tamanna, I would like to mention is what I say is, you have to try everything with an open mind. My philosophy over the years is to try different remedies, whether in the Eastern medicine or Western medicine, with an open mind. And no matter, and again, my philosophy is that to try different things. And I keep telling myself, if something is not going to kill me, let's try it. And when in doubt, try it. That was my philosophy. And that has worked very well. I've tried different things. It may or may not work, right? Those things. But our job is to try those things. And the one point which I would like to stress, and I'm sure many of you are going through that as caregivers, if you see fatigue, right, in your caregivers or friends related to their involvement or intensity in their interactions with you, do not take it personally. That fatigue is normal. It is totally understandable, as no one, including the person closest to you, can be there 100% of the time. You just have to understand that it does not mean that their love is diminished or reduced, or they care less for you. They're just humans like we all are. And a lot of the time, they don't even realize that they're showing off those, those fatigue kind of, things. So you have to just be, don't take it personally. And that's something I learned over my journey. And again, in terms of these life changes, right, physical or emotional, again, I would like to stress this: only you can determine if you can participate in certain activities, right? Listen to your heart and mind, and sometimes the heart wins over the mind. Sometimes it's the other way around. I mean, the bottom line is that only you can make a decision whether you can do a certain thing or not. Listen to your body, go with what feels right, and not societal pressure. Now, again, I want to stress other people being well with their suggestions, but only you can decide. And then the last thing, Tamanna, I would like to share is never ever give up, no matter what you're going through. You hope for the best, obviously, but you plan for the worst, which had been my corporate philosophy before, and that now I have applied it over the last 4.5 years. You obviously hope for the best, that things will get better, but plan for the worst. Always do that.
Thank you so much,
I
Mr.
have a
Sunil.
question, if I may.
Yes, yes.
But go
Sure.
ahead, please.
You were fortunate to have been in a country where the healthcare system is one of the best. So if you maybe imagine yourself in a city like Mumbai, which is your original place of birth, do you think the outcomes would have been the same, or you would have received the same care?
I talked with my mom, who is still in Mumbai, and I said, look, within 15, 20 minutes, I was able to go to the ER here. And within about 2 hours or so, I was on an operating table. If I was in Mumbai, I don't think it would have been possible to reach an hospital within 45 minutes. It would have taken at least 45 minutes with the traffic, whether it's Mumbai, Delhi, or whatever. And once I would have reached there, then I would have got good care. That I'm not that I was not worried. But just getting to the hospital is a big challenge in India. And in terms of the care, the care, the medical care here is obviously very cutting edge. It's quite expensive, but it's top of the line. But the care in India is also very good. Uh, but getting to the hospital is a big challenge. And if I had been in Mumbai, I don't think I would have survived. And again, as you all know, and as the Alliance talks about, be fast. The time is of the essence, right? As you all know, in the be fast. And with the stroke, with every minute, it's very important because you're losing blood, or the clot is there, or whatever. And the time is of the essence, and that's the difference. I think care-wise, I don't think there's any difference or much difference. But the things like getting to the hospital, paramedics, and stuff like that getting to the hospital faster was possible here, and that definitely saved my life. Within an hour or two, I was on the operating table.
So, as patient advocates, if we had to go with maybe two agenda points to the government or policymakers saying, this is what would save more people's lives, or this is what would be more effective in terms of a care pathway, what would be your recommendation?
So as an Indian who grew up in India, and as somebody who's has a vested interest in India, the one thing which you can definitely ask the local governments or state governments or national governments is that to improve the infrastructure of things, right? Whether it's ambulance, because I was in India last whole year, and I saw what the ambulances services are, and that's this is in a city like Mumbai, right, which is a big city, and it's not there, right? I mean, because the availability of ambulances, the quality of what the ambulances carry, and these are some of the things which the governments can help, and it's not just the central government. It different levels, state governments, local governments. So the infrastructure, to improve the infrastructure around transporting patients to the hospital, then also in the hospitals, some of so a lot of the care is done pretty good, pretty solid. But also the equipment, again, going back to the infrastructure, the equipment in the hospital needs to be better, and that's where the government can help, is improving the infrastructure around the medical care. And there's the other thing which I think the government can influence. They can do it, but they can influence is this whole concept of insurance. How to get the insurance, because these things are very expensive, as you know. And if you have money, then you're lucky that you can do these things in India with the post recovery from a stroke. But if you don't have money, then it's a problem. So I think promoting insurance with people, providing working with different insurance companies to provide health insurance and stuff like that, the government can influence. So those are the two things I can think of: infrastructure and insurance.
Do you have patient groups back in the US? And if so, how are they different from, say, patient groups in India?
Really, no difference. I do have groups here, and I've started to volunteer at the hospital, which saved my life. I'm involved in that group, and that group meets once a month, and we try to help the hospital improve their services. So that's one group, but I'm also involved in other groups. So they're no different, right? Everybody, like what you are going through, whether it's for yourself or for your loved one, it's exactly the same here. Everybody's trying to share, and and everybody's trying to, there's a lack of awareness, uh, period. I mean, yeah, you can say that in India, and I've seen it, the awareness is much less. The awareness is better here, but it's still on the low side, about stroke and symptoms and stuff like that. So I don't see any difference in the groups. And again, everybody is getting together like this group to help, raise the awareness of stroke. So in fact, I think May was the stroke month here in the US. I don't know if it was a global thing or not, but definitely it was identified as a stroke month to raise the awareness of stroke.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samir. You have actually highlighted very important points. And thank you, Dr. Ratna, that you have come out with a very important question to Mr. Samir, that yes, it's there are some important things that actually needs to be taken care of in India, not only maybe in some one particular city, but also in different other regions in India. So thank you so much, Mr. Samir. My last question would be that what message actually you would like to give the survivors in terms of that how these stroke support groups can actually build up their capacity and how they can push forward in terms of their in daily lives activities motivation, and how these support groups actually help them in coming forward and taking other steps that actually might they struggle with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And this talk about resilience, right? Whether it's the person who is going through a stroke, or you as a whether you're a caregiver, you have to build resilience, to face your post-stroke situation. And I read somewhere recently that resilience is not fixed. No, it's like a muscle. You can build it up, and it's been very true in my experience. You're obviously born with some resilience naturally, but more importantly, you can learn and improve that resilience. And again, also remember, resilience is something you don't fully know you have it until you need it. That has been my lesson learned. And again, going back to what I said before, to be resilient, you have to first accept the situation the way it is. So I call it, it is what it is became my mantra. And that I have repeatedly said in my book. It became my mantra to accept things, right? It is what it is. There's nothing you can do. Stroke has happened. Now you have to find a way. And now with the pandemic, there's nothing you can do, right? The pandemic has happened. You can't go back to pre-pandemic days. Now you have to find ways to face the situation. You have to accept it and move on. So building resilience has many components, and that's one thing. So a few things you got to do. That it can be learned, it can be developed. It's not fixed, and you need to have faith. And when I say faith, it's not necessarily a religion, right? It could be a religion for some. It could be spiritual. It could be that a faith in a universe or whatever it may be. You need to have faith in yourself, in others, and in the universe that things will get better. So that faith and belief are very important, because without that, you will not be able to survive. And always have a never say die attitude, which is very important, right? Never say that you give up. Never give up. never say die. Attitude is extremely important in facing your calamity. And lastly, you have, and as I said before, you need to be willing to learn different things, right? Whether, because I had never done yoga, meditation, or even I had talked to a clinical psychologist before my stroke. I had never done those things, but I was willing to learn, and I've learned a lot other things as well, and trying out different things. So that willingness is very important to face your strokes, post-stroke situation. So those are some of the things, Tamanna, I think, which will help build resilience for you as a caregiver or a stroke survivor.
That's
I have one question. An integral part of recovery is reintegration into society and reskilling so that you get back into the workforce. What kind of support systems do you have back in the US? And is there a lesson that people from India can learn from that?
Sure, absolutely. And this is where I think there's a big difference between the US, the support systems post-stroke, and in terms of reintegrating back to work and so on and so forth, and with India. So over here, there are lots of workshops. There are lots of, there's something called social security here. You pay taxes over the years, and that goes into this social security taxes. So you pay over the years, and it goes into this bucket to the government. And then when you have a calamity, then you get social security payments and infrastructure and resources. So one of the things that they have is they have like job resources. So you can work with those people, and they'll try to find you jobs. As I said, right, every situation is different. Some people can work 5 hours a week. Some people can work 20 hours a week. Some people cannot work. So they will try to find you jobs. They will help you with the job resources and to find you the right job, whatever number of hours you can do. So that's one, that's on the government side. But on the private side, there are lots of groups, whether it's hospitals, whether it's private companies, where they encourage people who are physically disabled or who are trying to reintegrate after a illness. And so they try to encourage those people by having special job fairs and special webinars on that. So again, it's both. The government helps, and the private sector also helps. So it's kind of, and it didn't happen overnight, right? In the US also, there was it was a taboo. Say, I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago, that once you are having some medical illness, you can go back to work. So that was a taboo. But now things have slowly improved, and there are lots of acceptance from various government entities and private companies that yes, we need to do things to help these people to reintegrate into the workforce. So but I would like to stress that the government and private companies can only do so much. At the end of the day, it's you. You have to define what drives you. You have to define what kind of work you can do or cannot do. And you have to proactively work with these governments and private companies and try to reintegrate back slowly. Whether, in some cases you may be able to do remote, work. You may not have to go physically. And with the COVID now, it's kind of easy to do remote work. So you may want to start there. And that has, that is easier here. So I think you cannot rely on the government or private companies. You have to be proactive in driving that.
Thank you so much. And I know every individual is different in their recovery pathway, but would there be some job profiles that are more suited to people who can do, say, a desk job, but are not able to sit for long times? And these are the skills that they can learn to move forward.
Right. So no matter what job, right? I was in IT and consulting, and I can comment more on that. I can spend 3 hours talking about that, but that's not the goal here. In general, right? In general, no matter what job you were doing before your stroke and you're trying to reintegrate back, first and foremost, learn to use technology to your advantage, whether it's Zoom, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's the remote learning, whether it's, so you have to learn to adapt to these technologies And and again, some technologies it's easier to adapt to, and again, depending on your stroke and your condition. But you have to learn these technologies, and the skill set you can develop. If you're able to do a lot of like webinars and online resources, and now with COVID, you can, you're forced to do a lot of online. So I would say try to keep up with your industry as much as possible by joining webinars, and most of them are free, or tuning into resources like LinkedIn, which is a professional resource which I use, just to keep abreast of what's happening. So even though you're not working in that particular area, you're at least aware of the trends and trends about that area. So I think learning is very important as you reintegrate back into the workforce. So these are the two things which come to my mind. Use the technology to your advantage and learn about your area, no matter what it is.
Thank you. And I have one more question. I know you mentioned about psychotherapy and calming kind of technique like meditation, etc. But do you think that music has a role to play in and learning an instrument, supports or helps people in overcoming their, difficulty in accepting the situation?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very good point. And I did do music therapy, and I'll tell you what that is, right? So when I came to India for my rehab, I stayed at a holistic facility in Gujarat. I spent about 2.5 months there, and I got exposed to yoga and meditation there. And one of the things I also got exposed to there was music therapy, or they call it the raga therapy. So basically, you sit with the headphones on, and you listen to certain ragas, and that helps with your mind. So I learned that there, and I used to listen to classical music before, but that was more of a hobby because my father was a big classical music listener. But that was more of a hobby. With raga therapy, you're by design you're sitting down for 10 minutes, you're putting the headphones on, and you're playing some different ragas, which will help your mind. And it's this music therapy is not just in India with the raga therapy, but also here. There's something called whole tones here, which is kind of high frequency music. They have different. So if you go to Google and you type in whole tones, it's high frequency music of different instruments, and you basically again you listen to that on your headphones, and that helps you with your brain. So music has been has healing powers. It's been proven over the years, over centuries, I believe. And it's not just in the eastern side of things, but also here. So music therapy did play an important part, and I continue to do that whenever I get a chance.
Thank you. I think that's a good take-home message that because music is never prescribed by the doctors, but we can always tell all our survivors that maybe right from the beginning, as soon as they are even in the hospital, as soon as they are able to listen, they should listen to some calming, soothing music, and that might sort of promote the recovery faster.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would highly advise to start, as you said, right? Start as soon as possible, because music has a lot of healing properties, and that's been proven over centuries.
Completely agree. Thank you so much. So Tamanna, back to you.
Most welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Mr. highlighting great message about the music.
Tamanna, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Tamanna, are you there?
She has some connectivity issues, looks like.
Yeah, she seems to have disappeared.
I'm sorry, this was my connection problem. I hope everyone can hear me now.
Yeah, we can now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sameer, for a great session today. We are very much thankful that you have actually highlighted very good, great points to all the survivors, and you have given such a great and important message about the acceptance. And you have highlighted many of the few therapies that actually help one of the stroke survivors coping up with their mental health problems, like yoga, meditation, and like you have so much mentioned, you have so much stressed out one thing, that is you have choices. Either you go into the depression or either you choose to find a different way. And when you find a different way, it's the one thing actually that you accepted and you moved forward in your life. So I think this is a very important message to all the survivors, that yes, you have choices in your life, but it's your responsibility and it's your thought that what actually you want to go with. So overall, thank you so much, Mr. Sameer. We would actually look forward for more sessions like this for our survivors. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Tamanna. This was really good. And what I'll do is I'll have some other pointers. I will send an email to you. Some of the some of the other therapies which I didn't get a chance to mention today, but I will send that email so you can forward it to the group.
Thank you. It was a great session. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and do
Thank you so much,
stay
sir.
safe. I believe there is a third wave round the corner.
Yeah, and in fact, I just wrote an article on that, which got picked up by something called Only My Health. So I'm talking about things which one can do with this potential third wave coming up. And the third wave is not just in India. I think that scare is here too, and it's all over the world too. So that article is on my website, and I talk about some things which we can do with this potential wave. But that's going to be a challenge for the whole world, no doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Sameer. It was wonderful. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye bye.